A Florida man has contracted a very rare and potentially deadly form of anthrax.
Terror attack on the United States. The day caught Americans off guard and put the country in a state of panic and uncertainty.
Of poison sent to members of Congress and major news organizations just weeks after the World Trade Center attacks.
September 2001, New York City is still burning, and 1 week later, a different kind of terror starts landing in mailboxes across America. Letters laced with a fine white powder. The FBI calls it a biological weapon. The news calls it a national emergency. The world calls it anthrax. And somewhere in that chaos, a thrash metal band that had been making records since 1981, a band literally named Anthrax, is about to become collateral damage in a story that has nothing to do with them at all. Later in this video, we'll see the band's most audacious troll job of their entire career. A prank so good, it fooled CNN.
Reported as fact on the fucking ticker. I'm sitting at home watching it and went across and said, heavy metal band Anthrax changes name.
For 20 years, Anthrax has just been another word from big thrash metal's Big Four. Overnight, it became one of the most searched, most feared words in America. Reporters who had never once called the band for an interview were suddenly blowing up their phones. News networks needed footage to fill airtime while covering an actual bioterrorism crisis, and archive clips of a New York thrash band were sitting right there, ready to be repurposed as visual filler for a story about a deadly toxin. Guitarist Scott Ian later described the surreal experience of watching the nightly news and hearing his own band's name spoken in the same breath as a biological weapon, half joking that for a second he'd hoped the anchor news was about to announce a new record instead. Behind the scenes, it got serious fast. Executives and PR handlers pushed the band hard to consider changing their name, rebrand, distance themselves, make the headache go away. Anthrax said no.
24-hour news channels by, saying, will Anthrax, the heavy metal band, change their name, as if this was fucking important.
Instead, on October 10, 2001, the band did what Anthrax does best. They turned the whole thing into a joke. They put out a mock press release announcing the band was officially changing its name to Basket Full of Puppies. It was satire. It was obviously satire, and major news outlets, CNN, The Guardian among them, completely missed the joke and reported it as a real literal name change.
Sitting at home watching it and went across and said, heavy metal band Anthrax changes name to Basket Full of Puppies.
Later that year, at a 9/11 benefit concert in New York City, the band gave their real answer. They walked on stage in matching jumpsuits with one simple message stitched across them: we're not changing our name. Scott Ian would later put it plainly, changing a name they'd carried proudly for over 20 years would have meant letting fear and the media dictate who they were. That wasn't happening. But while the band was fighting a PR war, they still had an album to finish, and they were about to bring in one guy who could solve it. Anthrax had been without a permanent lead guitarist for 6 years, ever since Dan Spitz's departure, and now in the middle of a media circus, they're also trying to modernize their sound for a new decade. Enter Rob Caggiano, a Bronx-born guitarist deeply plugged into the New York metal scene, previously of new metal outfit Boiler Room. He auditioned for Scott Ian and Charlie Benante, and the chemistry was instant. His modern edge matched exactly where the band wanted to go. The band didn't just hire a guitarist, they hired a co-producer. Caggiano's technical studio background made him the perfect second set of hands to help shape the record, and his arrival is widely credited with injecting the energy that saved the entire recording process. The band wrote through May and June of 2001, started tracking that November, paused for a Judas Priest tour in early 2002, then returned to Bear Track's recording studio in March to finish the job. In the end, the album took a year to record before finally landing on May 6, 2003, titled We've Come For Your All. The album kicked off with What Doesn't Die, a fast, brutal thrash track wrapped in a zombie apocalypse. That song was a statement of intent, but the lead single, Safe Home, went in a different direction. It was more melodic, more radio-friendly, and the video became a genuine pop culture moment thanks to a cameo from a very famous longtime fan of the band, Keanu Reeves. Then there's Cadillac Rockbox and Strap It On. Two groove-heavy cuts that each feature a guest solo from Dimebag Darrell of Pantera, including a comedic voicemail intro on Cadillac Rockbox that longtime fans still quote today. Taking the Music Back brought an unexpected guest in the other direction entirely. The Who's Roger Daltrey on backing vocals, bringing thrash metal and classic rock in one track. And Refuse to Be Denied closed the loop on everything the band had just lived through, a defiant, politically charged response to the year the media chaos had swallowed their name. Here's the part of the story that stings a little. Critically, We've Come For You All was a triumph. Reviewers called it a genuine return to form after a rocky run of 90s releases. Many still consider it the peak of John Bush's entire run as frontman, and his most aggressive and most soulful performance on record. Rob Caggiano's fingerprints got singled out too, praised for blending classic thrash precision with a modern groove-driven edge. Years later, outlets like Louder would even go further, calling it an underrated masterpiece and one of the best metal records of the 21st century. And then you look at the sales numbers. The album debuted at just 122 on the Billboard 200. First week sales in the US around 10,000 copies. Total domestic sales over its lifetime just over 62,000. It did pick up a nomination for Outstanding Hard Rock Album at the 2004 California Music Awards, but it lost to Blink-182's self-titled record. Critical masterpiece, commercial afterthought. That contradiction would end up shaping everything that would come next. In early 2005, Anthrax's camp made the call, bringing back original vocalist Joey Belladonna for a tour built around the classic Among the Living era lineup. The band floated the idea of co-headlining setup with Bush and Belladonna sharing the stage. Bush turned it down. He didn't feel it. He believed We Come For You All was the best work he had and the band had ever made together, and he wanted to build forward on that, not look backward. The way it played out afterwards wasn't clean. Word of the Belladonna reunion leaked while Bush was still out on tour with Anthrax in South America, meaning he found his own future with the band was already being decided without him. Mid-tour, he later admitted he simply wasn't handled well. There was more to it than just the music. By 2005, Bush had a newborn daughter at home and was ready to step back from the grind of full touring, eventually moving into voiceover work. The John Bush era of Anthrax, the era that produced Sound of White Noise, Sound 442, Volume 8, and this very album was over. We've Come For You All should have been the album that relaunched Anthrax. Critics agreed it was the best work in over a decade, but instead of building on it, the band was about to walk straight into the most chaotic revolving door decade of its entire history. Because that's what's come next. It's not just Joey's back, it's different singers, false starts, lineup changes, rapid fire. Even longtime fans lost track of who was actually fronting Anthrax at any given moment in the 2000s. Plus another singer who I had never heard of myself. Somebody commented and told me if I was going to do a video on him. And at the time I didn't know. I said yes, and I'll do a video on him, and that will be next. And also Frank Bello leaves the band and joins another band for just one album. I'll be talking about that as well. So the playlist of the entire Anthrax series should be on the screen right now. Like and subscribe. Check out the playlist. It has the entire story. I just edit videos as I make them. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.